we do in fact have our matchup here presented. Frisian Marshes is the map that Kiljardi chooses to opt for here in his potential elimination game from the winner's bracket. And it is going to be Ottomans for Kiljardi against Liquid Demu's Japanese.
This is a super clever pick. The Japanese is not a common civ for the Frisian Marshes, but the map has so much food and sheep that a fast castle is so easy to go for. But it's not easy because he's up against the Ottomans coming out from the Kiljardi. And this was the pick that we were talking about, but expecting on a different map. I think it's pretty straightforward. In terms of the map draft, Kiljardi obviously doesn't want to play Hill and Dale. It's where Demo was most comfortable in his previous set. And now, going up in Frisian Marshes here, with such a matchup, it can go both ways.
Absolutely. As we mentioned before, Ottomans, one of the premier picks against any kind of cavalry civilization available in Age of Empires 4, right? And as we have seen, very notably, since their release, really, for Japanese after some thoughtful experimentation by the top players, the most common build that they have opted for the longest time now has been that fast castle into those oppressive, well-known mounted samurai with their deflective armor that makes them so powerful. So on paper, you might think that, with access to the Janissaries for Kiljardi in Castle Age, you shouldn't be too difficult for him to deal with the samurai, but the truth is, with the Yorishiro boosted stable, they come out so quickly and the timing can hit so powerfully, right? And with the slow initial economy for Ottomans needing those military schools to actually sustain some kind of a meaningful military, it is not as cut and dry as it first appears.
We are going to load up the map coming on Frisian Marshes with Kiljardi's Ottomans going up against Demo's Japanese. This is going to be super interesting because we talked so much about the matchup now, how it conventionally goes, but it can go so many different ways. We don't know yet what approach Kiljardi will take here. We do, however, see he has opened up with the military school. Demo sees it as well, so he is prepared. Demo not with the most favorable spawn. It's okay, he's got the gold in the front, and the second gold is more in the front as well. Whereas for Kiljardi, if he assumes the role of the aggressor here, will be able to potentially lock those golds down.
Yes, and aggression is certainly a viable strategy here for Kiljardi on the Ottomans against Demo's Japanese, because although this map does have a lot of food and is initially somewhat safe, we do see that in terms of spawn, this map is quite unique compared to others, right? Most often we see a mirrored diagonal spawn on, very standard maps like Dry Arabia, for instance, as well as Lepony, these kind of maps that we know very well by now. But Frisian Marshes, on the other hand, you both spawn on the same side of the map, directly mirrored opposite each other. So the result of this is a very short crossing distance from one base towards the other, and in terms of aggression, this is certainly a favorable spot for that kind of a playstyle.
Absolutely. We are seeing a map where the resources project outwards, not towards each other, and that means that you are forced to play a very wide base at some point in the game. Now, with all the sheep early, that means that you can stay in base for longer, but at some point, you have to move really, really far because the map is so large with this kind of layout where the players are mirrored like this.
Yes, that's right. And one of the key points in this game will be Liquid Demu's gold access here, right? Which, having won his secondary gold here very far forward towards Kiljardi's base is certainly a significant detail here, right? He has that initial starting gold, which is not in a terrible position, right? Towards the right side, extending outwards towards the map. Liquid Demu is most likely going to opt for that castle because that is exactly where Japanese thrive most, right? Getting those mounted samurais, getting that Yorishiro for the boosted production, picking up those relics, that is where Demu wants to be on the Japanese, as they do find themselves struggling in a lot of matchups in the feudal age. So I think gold will be one of the key resources that Kiljardi looks to deny here and control if he does decide to peruse aggression.
Yeah, this military school is going to be really important because it's going to cover for his play that's coming here. We are not seeing the minaret. We are seeing the Sultan Hani trade network. This is going to be a crucial part of his strategy here, which is going to turn this matchup maybe a little bit around, because now Demo will have to move out more so than before, because Kiljardi sets up a new victory condition that we didn't realize before. We thought it was going to be Kiljardi trying to deal with Demo's very narrow playstyle in his base. Now he's forcing Demo out of his base simply by setting up this trade, and this is going to be absolutely integral part of this strategy.
Trade is certainly one of the options available for Kiliardi here. You know, Ottoman trade is something that we have seen crop up recently, again in popularity for the Ottomans, right? The Sultanani, a favored option over the Twin Minaret Address for a lot of players nowadays, right? Especially on this map, one of the premier trade maps in competitive Age of Empires 4 at the moment. Now, finding a window to get, you know, a lucrative trade route here and defend it on such a long map, as we have mentioned before, despite it not being too difficult to wall with many small wood lines providing somewhat of a cover as well. Defending against a Castle Age timing whilst trading behind would be so difficult for Kiliardi here, so I would be a little bit surprised if he does opt for that playstyle. Now, we do see the spears from the military school moving forward for Kiliardi towards Demu's gold, but Demu not missing a beat. He had that tower set up already in the Dark Age there, so no damage will be found by these spears initially.
We are seeing something very, very interesting here. It could have gone two ways. Either KillJardi plays the really long feudal. He has the utility that we've been speaking about, that anti-cavalry unit that he can get out in Feudal Age that is belonging in Castle Age Janissary. Gonna be super powerful. And that means that he can stay in feudal for longer. But look at this macro. He's got 2 on wood, 6 on gold, 15 on food. A little bit of resources coming through the trade as well. I guess it's about 70, 80 resources from the traders. And that's gonna be the timing that he needs to compete with Demu's Castle Age timing. He's not gonna play this in Feudal Age, I suppose.
Yes, and the Ottomans themselves are no slouches in Castle Age at all, it being one of their strongest ages as well, right? They can hit a very respectable timing too, as we have seen. So even with this military school opening, it will provide KillJardi with some nice spears here just to poke and prod a little bit, maybe push Demu of those further farther away berries from his base near that farmhouse. But we do see a stable being dropped here for Kiliardi as well. He might opt for a Sipahi or two here in this early Feudal Age, or perhaps it might just be prepped for that Castle Age timing that he definitely is macroing towards right now.
Yeah, the question is he going to try to contest the relics? I would say that he has to contest them, but how is he going to do it? Will he do it with the early Sipahi, trying to take out the early priests coming out from Japanese? I think that might be the best way to do it, because he can outrun the samurai with the Sipahi. If he chooses to go into knights, that's where things get dicey. And we see it in so many matchups where people try to compete with that Japanese timing instead of trying to doing something early. Then it becomes very difficult when you don't have the deflective armor. The deflective armor deals with the cavalry charge, and if you're playing knight versus knight, or essentially mounted samurai versus knight, you are at a disadvantage.
Without a doubt, right? And not only is the deflective armor able to block the initial charge from the knight, which then, if disengaging, will refresh later on to block even further damage for free for those mounted samurai, but on top of that, the Yorishiro, which can be placed inside of the stable, an additional 200% production bonus on the stable, turning one stable into 3 straight away from the get-go after reaching Castle Age. This kind of a boost, not only militarily but also economically, is very difficult for a lot of civilizations to deal with.
Absolutely. We do see Castle Age coming in from both of these players. Floating Gate from Demu, gonna be able to pop those Yorishiro inside of stables, barracks, archer ranges. Could potentially go into Onimusha here with his archer range. And that's going to be crucial when it comes to dealing with these armored units that KillJardi can go for. The way that KillJardi has to go about that is going to be interesting. Will he choose to go for an infantry approach, or is he going to go for the cavalry?
Interesting approach here by Demu, prioritizing the archery range instead of the stable, but to an extent it makes sense, right? There's already 3 spears on the field, more could potentially be on the way for Kiliardi, and there's always that danger of the Janissary Vizier point being called in slightly later on by Kiliardi, which do end up melting cavalry units once if they get too close to the fire. And Onimusha, we have seen this unit being prioritized by Demu in the past, right? Notably, in the set against Boltun yesterday, we have seen him run composition of Mounted Samurai and the Onimusha against Boltun's Ayyubids on Hill and Dale. So, opting for them now today as an opener instead, we see Steeled Arrow already on the way, about to finish for Liquid Demu, as 2 Onimusha are out already. Relic on the way back for Kiliardi. Just a little skirmish here, spotted out by Demu Scout. Onimusha are heading straight towards there now. Onimusha are not the best unit against these spears. Of course, they are ranged and have very high mobility, but with a low attack rate, it will take them a little while to take out these spears.
Very, very interesting little skirmish we had there. We saw how the spears were actually trying to kill the scout and not the Onimusha. Now, Demu's going to be focused on microing the Onimusha, but losing the scout vision is actually really annoying with all this stealth forest. That means that the relic can be snuck through the stealth forest, even though he doesn't have defensive units. So if the scout goes down, the relic is secure.
Absolutely, and with no stable yet for Liquid Demu, if we would have lost that scout, that would have been quite a painful spot to be in, right? Opting for the archery range instead of the stable is a notable detail for this kind of a skirmish here. But the monk is killed, the imam, excuse me, is killed by Demu with the Onimushas, as he will now look to sit and guard this relic until his own Shinto priest looks to pick it up and take it back home to the safety of the Japanese base.
Yeah, this relic is almost secure for Kiljardi. He has 2 more in the top side. We always talk about when you're trying to compete with somebody's Castle Age timing, with your own Castle Age timing, this relic gameplay is just so important because every relic counts as 2 gold villagers. And with those relics, you can get a considerable eco bonus later on in the game with additional upgrades in the Imperial Age. If this relic comes in and another one from the back line, plus the one in the front, we will see 3 relics for Kiljardi. And we'll see 2 for Demu, and that means that if the game goes long, Kiljardi should be slightly favored economically.
Yes, absolutely. A relic on the north side towards Kiljardi's base is going to be secured here. You can see it on the way. One is already in Kiljardi's base, but I really like this Onimusha play here from Demu, right? Kiljardi, I'm not sure if he didn't scout it or decided to opt for them anyway, but prioritizing knights instead of a different unit type, which, as we have spoken about before, don't match well against mounted samurai from the Japanese. So I'm a little bit surprised to see him opt for that. Of course, he did have the spears initially to help turn the tides of that kind of a skirmish, but instead, Demu opting for the Onimusha, 13 now with more on the way. Significant military lead for him, forcing Kiljardi to hold knight production entirely and do a desperate switch to Sebahi instead. But big connection with the Mangonel onto the Onimusha, which are very squishy units despite being cavalry, right? Notable difference from other cavalry units as the health bars are now shaved in under half.
Absolutely, this Mangonel, usually you can out-micro a Mangonel shot rather easily. Ololo coming in here. Ooh, it's gonna be close. Does go down, and Kiljardi retains the relic here. Onimusha is going on the back line here. Demu seems to be aware that trade is going on. The Onimusha is such an interesting unit here because the Onimusha are great at relic contest, but what are you gonna do the moment that you see the siege ball with lots of ranged units?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, the Onimusha, as Waldemar just mentioned, very good for these sort of skirmishes at securing the relics around the map. Not only are they fast, but they also have very long range and are able to kite most enemy units here. But it's quite tough against this Ottoman mass building here from Kiljardi, because with the Sebahi, a premier cavalry unit that the Ottomans have access to, they will deal very well with the Onimusha. But most notably what we see now from Liquid Demu with the Nodachi upgrade coming in from the barracks, it is going to be a samurai switch for him.
With a full samurai / melee switch, it's going to be tough to run this siege range composition if he has the numbers for it. Now granted, the Onimushas are very good at dealing with frontline units. The moment that we're talking range units and siege, they lose pretty much all their values. So even though their military values are comparable right now, we are looking at a high counter coming out from Kiljardi.
Yes, prioritizing the crossbows now, Kiljardi is in anticipation of a likely melee switch here. But second town center coming up for Demu behind this, which makes sense, right? You do want to look for this kind of a scaling whenever you think you have the space to do so. And this is partly what the Onimushas are able to afford you, right? As Liquid Demu controls Kiljardi just here for now, you know, patrolling outside of his base here. And with this kind of map control, he is able to secure that town center without being forced back initially just now. But second Mangonel now out for Kiljardi, a third one underway from the Mehmed Imperial Armory, and Kiljardi with his large military mass starting to push across the base. And with these 2 Mangonels, 11 samurai already on the field for Demu, but I'm not quite sure that's enough to take out this force.
It's going to be tough because the upgraded Sipahis here will deal very well with the Onimushas. And now, with a strong backline of ranged units, the Samurai might not have the numbers yet. So if Kiljardi chooses to go for an attack here, it could potentially give him the advantage he needs to probably finish this game. We did see before that Demo decided to drop a second TC. Do you think this could potentially keep him in this game, with Onimushas being so mobile, so good at causing idle time in the military, keeping the military away from your base by always being a threat in the enemy's base?
It could be quite difficult here for Demu to hold, partly because of that second town center, right? We know at this stage in the game, especially with boosted production from the Yorishiro that Demu has opted for, having a further drain onto his food supplies here with the second town center, when in fact he now finds himself desperately needing military as the forge goes down for Demu, which did have a Yorishiro placed inside, granting him passive gold income, is now gone, as the floating gate will once again produce more Shinto priests for more Yorishiros here. But this double Mangonel setup from Kiljardi will be so difficult for Demu to deal with, as although the Samurai, there's not too many crossbows out on the field yet, the Janissary Vizier point is called in by Kiljardi, 10 now on the field due to the 5 military schools that he had placed. And this kind of a ranged force will deal very well with the Samurai on Demu's side.
Absolutely. Samurai, I wonder if they can hold back these Onimushas on that Springle that he's been producing, Demo, because now we see 3 Mangonels and 10 Janissaries, which means if the Onimushas come too close to the Siege Ball from Kiljardi, they will be out. They are going to go down quicker than the blink of an eye.
I'm very much liking Kiljardi's position here, I must say. We just see Demu looking for delaying sortie tactics with these Onimusha onto the reinforcements of Kiljardi. But this is a very difficult composition here to deal with for Demu. We do see one Springboard out for him already, maybe a second one on the way soon potentially. But, you know, the reality is with so many Sipahi are very well known due to their 0.75 range, allowing them to close in on enemy siege and take them out from a great distance, even with melee units surrounding them. It can be very difficult to keep that Springboard alive for Demu in time for him to kill the Mangonels, as more and more military units streaming in for Kiljardi as he finds himself quite severely ahead of Demu here. And all of the production for Demu going down here, all of it boosted by the Yorishiros of the Shinto priest on the right side of his base, but it is now all gone, including the relic.
Absolutely. He's taking out most of the production here. He's taking out the relic as well. So now Demu has no relics. No relics means that he's going to lose out on that income in the Yudashiro as well. No extra production speed on his production buildings because they're gone. What are you going to do when you don't have production and you have such a large force with such high quality units right outside your base?
Yes, he's steering back just a little bit here. Kiljardi doesn't want to get too impatient, right? But it's important for him to not let up his foot off the pedal, so to say, right? He needs to keep up the pressure, I would say. But I believe he just wants to deal with those pesky Onimusha here that are just, you know, harassing his reinforcement line. Just a few Sipahi should be able to deal with that mass, as Sipahi are so fantastic at dealing with any kind of range units as well as siege, and those Onimushas will be no different. And he's just going to secure this sacred site, perhaps wants to set up camp here, doesn't want a little victory condition looming over him in the form of the sacred sites, and that is also, you know, of course, 100 free gold per minute that Demu is gaining, and Kiljardi wants none of that for his opponent.
It's a little bit of an interesting way that he decided to position himself here, because Demo does have the vision on the sacred side, having the capture on it. That means that Kiljardi just flashed his entire army. Demo knows what the army of Kiljardi is 100% now. And that means that Demo now has, with this extra added time from too much patience maybe from Kiljardi, means that now Demo can add in the direct counter units. He's going to need Mangonels, as you can see, he's producing them already. He's got the Springles. No Springles out from Kiljardi. So if this comes down to a showdown in the base of Demo, I think he has a really, really good shot at defending this. I think Kiljardi might have maybe waited a little bit too long.
I have to agree with you, Voldemar. A little bit strange to let up the pressure here for Kajadi. Certainly uncharacteristic for him as a player, but also in this game, right? We do see 22 spears out for Demu already on the defense, right? In anticipation of this Sepahi mass from Kiliardi's Ottomans. Yeah, I'm quite surprised by him just peeling off the great spot that he was in here. And as you mentioned yourself, Voldemar, 3 springboards out now for Demu. And in combination with those spears and Samurai, 11 Sepahi will not be enough to quite close in and deal with them for those mangonels. But what I assume Kiliardi is doing here is that he knows that the priority for springboards that Demu is going to likely opt for. So he doesn't want to just, you know, be too all in here under Demu's base. Also perhaps fearing the powerful town centers that the Japanese have access to with the daimyo upgrades. So I assume he is going to build up a healthy springboard mass of his own before looking to make his final decisive push towards Demu's base.
Yeah, and it's curious to me. I don't really know why he decided to take this approach, adding in the second TC and farms, even though he has access to very, very top-of-the-line resources on this map. The shoreline fish for the villagers having one of the highest gather rates for the villagers. He could have potentially pushed out way more units instead of making farms and TC, and then have gone for the all-in, but he decides to take a more careful approach. Something that we see quite often in these tournament games is it can be so difficult to finish games, and sometimes you need to drag them out because you don't want to necessarily take a loss here. Remember, Kiljardi is on match point. He might lose this and then be completely out of the top bracket going into a second set against Bolchun. He doesn't want that. He wants the safety of a longer game with more variables so that Demo can commit more mistakes.
Yes, this could be a double-edged sword for Kiljardi, right? Just playing it careful here, not wanting to throw away the lead that he had built up in terms of map control in this game, you know, not wanting to press his advantage too far, recognizing his precarious position in this set, right? And it's interesting the patience he exercises here, a little bit uncharacteristic of him, right? In order to you know, just pull back his army here, but instead he decides to push forward now after capturing both sacred sites with his own healthy springboard mass now 4 as well as 4 mangonels. We do see the engagement happening. Towers being set up by Demo on the forward, but he is caught with his pants down doing so, right, as the significant ranged mass of Kiljardi pushes forward. A significant army lead for Kiljardi here, as well as upgrades as well. Looking at them at this stage, but the siege mass is what's really notable here. 5 springboards for Demo and only 4 for Kiljardi, more on the way, but he is forced back from this position. Demo is, as you know, the gold situation will be a problem because this is Demo's second closest gold. It is his secondary gold here, and it is the closest one to him. And if he can't secure this, then this might be very difficult to hold. Big mangonel shots on the back don't connect fully, but they almost take out the springboard there. Springboards firing onto each other from the backside, but the military of Demo here is looking anemic as it pushes in towards Kiljardi's mass. Springboards firing at each other from the back, trades back and forth, but the entirety of Demo's siege is actually wiped out at this stage, with most of Kiljardi staying intact. His mangonels are mostly dead, but the springboard shot is there. With that, Kiljardi takes the W to equalize the set 2-2.
Absolutely flawless execution of that push here in the end. That was something to see. He could have gone for it so much earlier, but he decided to be patient. Now the score is 2-2, and Demo has the map pick. There's one map left, and it's Hill and Dale. I would say that's largely in favor of Demo, but now Kiljardi has momentum, and Demo has to really be careful.
A nail-biting set here in the winners' final for King of the North, as we can just see the players exchanging a smile and a giggle to each other, right? They do get along well. We have seen them hanging out at this event quite often. Of course, there's no bad blood here at all. These players know each other well. They respect each other. The sportsmanship is there, right? And, you know, both probably entertained by this game, right? It was a bit of a back and forth there going on. Even Demo most likely impressed with the effectiveness in execution of that push there. You know, we were just a little bit worried initially with him backing off there when he had such a significant army mass as well as the siege mass, right? But an excellent exercise in patience by Kiljardi there, which is uncharacteristic for him as well, right? We can see his growth as a player here in this event. You know, often we see Kiljardi perhaps overextend sometimes, as he did in that Rus game in this very set, right? But recognizing his mistakes just from earlier in the set, not even from other days, quick adaptation by him, and I know that's something he prioritizes. He mentioned it to himself, to me, earlier today. with that patience exercise, he secures the sacred sites. He just gets himself set up, gets all the springles he needs so that there's nothing for him to lose. There is no comeback potential for Demu to hold the push, and with that grand move forward, he decisively takes the fight and takes Demu out of the game, forcing a Game 5 here on Hill and Dale.